and I'll read your introduction. I haven't read this yet, and they just sent it over to me, so hopefully I'll get it done in one shot. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read us in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm excited to have Dr. Vikki Petersen with us. Dr. Vikki is a doctor of chiropractic, certified clinical nutritionist, certified and functional medicine practitioner, and is the founder of renowned Root Cause Medical Clinic in Saratoga, California. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree from Smith College and is a doctorate from Northwestern Health Science University. She has received a certified clinical nutritionist certification from the International and American Association of Clinical Nutritionists and is also certified with the Institute of Functional Medicine. Oh my gosh, she's kind of famous. I think she should have a cape on. Hi, Dr. Vikki, and thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love the name of your podcast. It's perfect.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
It means a lot to me to have the name of that. And our book, we just released a book with stories of hope, and it's called Oh My Health, There Is Hope.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I really, whenever I talk to experts on the podcast, it's amazing when I get to know them that they have this really powerful story that's usually led them into what they're doing now. And I would love it if you could share your story with everyone and telling them, how you got where you're at right now.
Sure. I think, and what you said is very true. And I find that amongst fellow clinicians is that there's a story. There's a reason somebody, and it gets in either their specialty or the direction they took, and it has to either do with themselves or someone near and dear, like a parent. So my story is that I wanted from a very young age to be a medical doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician and loved kids, and just sort of knew I wanted to be a doctor. The backstory was that my mother was very ill my entire life, really her entire life, just not mine. And then when I hit puberty, I started getting all the same symptoms. So she and I both would pass out from low blood sugar. So our glucose would get so unstable. It wasn't just, oh, I feel faint. It would just be crash onto the floor. And then also I started developing migraines, and she was a chronic migraine sufferer, a lot of fatigue, a lot of joint pain. And my childhood, I was a figure skater. I have a US gold medal standing in figure skating. And so I was working my body pretty hard physically, despite this penchant for passing out from low blood sugar and fatigue and the migraines. And then when I started menstruating, and I started menstruating a little bit later because I was such an athlete, but hideous menstrual cramps and terrible PMS, and not so much heavy bleeding, but really awful pain. And I do remember being in college, I think it was my sophomore year, I was just lying there writhing in pain, and I never took the birth control pill or anything like that because my mother just said, don't bother. I've tried every single one, and I had horrible side effects, and just forget about it. So I just didn't do it. And but I was lying there in all this pain, and I was just like, okay, childbirth. Like I was trying to imagine pain worse than, I was experiencing. And this is talk about giving hope. Over the years, I've been able to say to young women who have terrible menstrual cramps that the truth that I found out later, having had 3 children, is that you don't go through a higher level of pain. You've been doing it every month of your life, is basically you've been going through labor, but nothing cute to show for it at the other end. So anyway, while I was in college, I was pre-med. I was a molecular biology major, and as every good little pre-med student does, during the summers off from school, I was working in hospitals. And during that time, my mother found a nutritionist. And nutritionists back then were just really weirdos. It was just not mainstream, very far from it. But we started using some nutrition, cleaning up our diet. And I actually grew up on a very healthy diet. My mother was a gourmet cook. She was a wonderful cook. Everything was from scratch. So we were not eating junk by any stretch of the imagination. But we made some refinements, started taking some vitamins, and we did stop passing out from low blood sugar, which was huge, because it's not fun to be found unconscious in various places. So I went to the doctors at the hospital during that time, and I said, what do you think about nutrition and supplements and things like that? And it was completely dismissed as, that's ridiculous. There's no validity in that. And so it was an interesting moment, still being really quite young and having this goal of being a medical doctor my entire life, and then seeing what nutrition was doing for my mother and myself. And there was no agreement between these two groups. And I was like, and I got depressed. I was like, what am I going to do? And then I was really in the hospital system in the summers, and it was, it was interesting, watching surgeries and seeing how kind of, when somebody's unconscious, they're being a little hard on the body, and it's like, that person's going to wake up. You don't have to be quite that, quite that aggressive with this body part. It's just because they're unconscious doesn't mean that, you're not creating potentially some damage. It was a knee surgery that I'm particularly referring to. And I was like, good Lord, be a little gentler. And then sort of, patients with type 2 diabetes that were sort of a little bit end stage, and doctors speaking a little deprecatingly about their patients. It's like, well, what does she expect? She's 100 pounds overweight. And it was just all this kind of like, it was a tough time for me. And then what happened, as I said, I was a figure skater. I'd had a lot of joint pain. But an interesting thing happened my junior year of college, and I got a really bad case of mono. Terrible case of mono. And I was seeing a chiropractor for the first time, and I'd never seen one, but I'd had this chronic low back. And I went to see him. I'd had the mono. I was mostly over it. And I went to see him, and I was just sort of thinking about whatever. And finally he said, Vikki. And I'm like, what? It's sort of like I was lying on the table. He was doing his thing. I wasn't really paying attention. He said, what is wrong with your liver and your spleen, which are organs that can get inflamed with mononucleosis? And I was like, I'm like, I'm getting over a really bad case of mono. And he's like, oh, good. He goes, I was so worried. And then I went, wait a second. I didn't tell you anything. How did you figure that out? And he was using reflex points, sort of acupuncture reflex points and muscle testing and various things. And I hadn't been paying any attention. And I was like, that's really cool, right? And so he was a doctor of chiropractic that also did a lot of nutrition. So we started talking, and I'm like, I think I've found my place, because I loved the fact that I said nothing and he completely figured it out and recommended some more nutrition for me, because I really did not fare well through this case of mono. I was off school for 3 weeks, etc. And I started looking into it more, and that's when I made my switch my junior year of college to become a doctor of chiropractic with a lot of emphasis on nutrition, and I left conventional medicine. So
oh my
that's my
gosh.
story.
I love your story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then my husband and I actually met in chiropractic school, but the Institute for Functional Medicine, so our specialty is functional medicine. While still in school, every weekend, probably 3 weekends out of every month, we were at a nutrition seminar. And the founder of functional medicine, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, was someone who we met very, very early on. So we got this amazing education about functional medicine, such that we've never thought any other way. We've always looked at the body as a whole, appreciated all the parts are integrated. There's no island unto itself in the human body. Its ability to heal is so incredibly strong. And that if you just, it knows how to heal, but it can get burdened, and then it can't. And so it's all about unburdening enough so that the body then rises, and that's really what we do. And what's happened over 25 years is just the fact that the tools have gotten so much better, allowing us to identify those burdens. That's really what's happened. So it's been a wonderful journey.
Not only do I really love that story, and I've heard that story many times, similar things about people in
Yeah,
regular medicine in school, and realizing that there's another way, another way
yeah.
to support the body. One of
Hmm.
the things I really love about you is the business name, the Root Cause
Root
Medical Clinic.
cause.
Yes, instead
Yeah,
of putting a
yeah,
Band-Aid on it, let's get to the root cause and pull that
yeah.
root right out. I love that.
No, totally. And really our name, it so resonates. I mean, we practice functional medicine, which is, a great word as far as restoring function, but root cause says it so much better, because when patients come to see us, it's like, yeah, I'm tired of the Band-Aid, I'm tired of just drug, drug, drug. I want to know the root cause, and maybe I don't need as many drugs, maybe, and that's what we find is that, and that's what we don't appreciate, is that the human body's ability to heal, if you just give it enough support, is so amazing. I mean, I've had patients on drugs for 2 decades that we can get them off. The body, as I like to joke, it doesn't hold a grudge, and it's so strong. So you give it the right help, and its ability to repair is just amazing. So it's a fun career. And it's always, we see some very complicated cases that have all but given up. I mean, I just spoke to a gentleman from South Africa this morning, and he's so ready. I mean, he's only 48 years old, but he said, I was so ready to give up. And I have a pretty big YouTube channel, and he found us. And I was like, I'm so glad you found us, because we can work with him. We work with people long distance all over the world. I mean, mostly within the US, but a little bit international.
Well, Dr. Vikki, one of the reasons I even started Oh My Health, There Is Hope is because I wanted people to understand that when I was sick and I went to the computer, I literally was typing in desperate for health answers to try to find something to help me, because modern medicine
Yeah,
had not only failed me, there was no other options for me. And sitting at the computer is a really scary thing. But what I tell my
yeah,
clients is, where else in the world can I sit in my deathbed, literally at the time,
yeah.
get on the
Oh,
computer and start typing in and extend my reach globally and find experts like you that can give me solutions and options. So I'm really grateful for the time we live in right now, that we can reach out and
it,
do that.
it's true. So many doctors are, like, don't get on the internet, don't look, and we're not of that ilk at all. Unless somebody gets, super upset about doing it. But otherwise, I mean, I find patients that really have correctly diagnosed themselves when conventional medicine hasn't, by doing their own education. And it's unfortunate that we have to so strongly advocate for ourselves, because conventional medicine doesn't put it together for us, and doesn't listen. I mean, I have patients who burst into tears just because they say, oh my God, like, you're listening, and I don't feel like I'm crazy telling you all this, and that's really unfortunate that that it that we're so dismissed. And this gentleman from South Africa, it was pretty classic. And he has a situation, we do a lot with hiatal hernia, and it can create panic attacks. And his gastroenterologist in South Africa made him, like, said, I'm not going to see you again until you see a psychiatrist, because it's all in your head. And it's not. It's absolutely not. And he's, was so desperate, but he kept looking. He had that tenacity to keep looking. And again, I'm always so grateful when somebody finds us that I know I can help, right? But it is that tenacity and not giving up. So you are super smart to do that.
I'm on survival mode.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know.
I have a lot of doctors and nurses in my family. I'm surrounded by people who are
Oh,
in the pharmaceutical world, and
yeah,
they didn't want me to die. They were at a loss for what to do. And
yeah,
I remember when
yeah.
I went online thinking, wow, this holistic stuff, is this new? Because I was in my 50s, I had never heard of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know. It's something that it's either something you're a bit raised, a bit raised with, or you get there, you hear something, or you get there from desperation. And I would say the majority of patients get there from desperation, where it's just like, there's got to be something, there's got to be something. And somebody said, what's your classic patient? And I said, really, there is a tenacity aspect to the people we see, because some people just go, all right, well, that's what the doctor said, and they just kind of go along like little sheep, versus the person that maybe starts with listening and then just says, this doesn't feel right. I really think there's got to be a better way. And then they find it, and it's great.
By the way, that was me. I was raised to not question doctors. They went to school, they had a
Right.
great education, this was their job, and you just did what you were told to do with no question. Here's the
Sure.
weird thing. I have 4 children, and I remember taking one of them to the doctors, knowing intuitively something was seriously wrong,
Oh.
and fighting. Like, I fought so bad with this emergency room doctor, I was escorted off the property, drove to another drove to another emergency facility because I knew something was not right. And my
Yeah.
daughter had had appendicitis that ruptured, and she was like, she was becoming septic, and they
Oh, oh,
missed
oh,
it. And because of
wow.
my meat, but how come we don't do that
There
for
you go.
ourselves? Why don't we
Yeah.
advocate that way for ourselves? But if
Yeah.
it's one of your children, look out, you're going to get,
I know.
attacked.
Like, don't get in the way of a mother with with her little cub.
I agree. I,
Yeah, I'm that kind of mom too.
Yeah, but I don't think I would do that for myself. I'd go home in pain
I
thinking,
know. Aw.
they said I was fine. I don't know what's
Right.
wrong.
Aw. Well, you're a good mommy.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, you had some questions that we were going to talk about, and one of them was about the vitamin C boost, and how does that boost
Yeah.
your immune system?
Yeah, absolutely. Vitamin C it's a known antiviral. So it absolutely defends you against viruses that come in. But it's I mean, we're all about COVID-19 and viruses these days, but it's also just important to understand that your natural killer cells, which are your immune defense army, are enhanced by vitamin C. So it's nothing new to know about vitamin C and vitamin C IVs, using them in a more robust fashion, because your gut can only tolerate so much vitamin C. And we can talk about that, because that's a fun little thing that people can do at home, which is find out what your bowel tolerance is. So vitamin C is water soluble. And so, especially now when you want it to be as robust as it can in a level of your body, find out what your bowel tolerance is. So you can take a gram of vitamin C an hour, and during the day, and as soon as it starts sort of spilling over, meaning your body can't use it anymore, the early symptoms are you get a little gassy. So it's nice to stop at that point, because the next level is diarrhea, which is less fun. So you can preempt the diarrhea by going, oh, I'm farting about a lot, right? That's the pre-stage. And then you can stop and see what that level was, because it shows how much you need before it's excess and it's spilling over. So it's a good little test, and then stay at that level and just monitor yourself. And maybe you need 4 grams of vitamin C a day, right? Because you want to really be very defensible right now, and really arm those natural killer cells with as much strength as you can. The IVs, of course, not everybody has access to, but intravenously you can get a much higher dose in you, because it's going straight into the bloodstream. So it's more efficacious, and you can get more in. But from a here we are at home and what can we do viewpoint, it definitely, you can do that bowel tolerance test. And if you go to the website, which I'm sure you'll mention at some point, rootcausemedicalclinics.com, I did a nice blog and a video on vitamin C, and I lay out how to do the vitamin C bowel tolerance test. And I think that's really worthwhile at this point to see how much you need. And you might be surprised, you could need 5 grams of vitamin C. So it's good to find out, because it's so, as I said, it's so empowering to those natural killer cells.
Well, one of the questions I want to ask you, because I know a lot of people who listen to this will want to run out and buy vitamin C and start doing this. And one of the things I always tell people is all supplements are not created equally. And for me, for instance, I have no stomach, so I try not to get anything in pill form. I try to make sure I can break it down, that my body can absorb it very easily. But if you're planning on going like to Costco or one of those big facilities where you're buying the big gallon jug of vitamins and coming home, they're probably not going to be as effective as if you buy a good quality vitamin C. So any suggestions for that?
Yeah. I mean, we have a store on our site, not that you certainly have to buy anything from me, but there is a store that, obviously we've been doing this for a long time. So we work with a wide variety of companies, and it's all about efficacious, not binders and fillers. And I love the vitamin C we work with because they've actually done those natural killer cell tests, the before and the after, showing the efficacy of it. So, I would, try to find something, and I don't know if I can say this, but I wouldn't get your vitamins at Costco.
I say it all the time.
Oh, okay, good.
I do. I say it all the time. Like, and if you look, they're made in China. Like, it's kind of scary.
Oh yeah, with heavy metals and all of that. Yeah. So you can, definitely you can visit the site and see our store, but you can, go online. And I mean, if it's doctor backed, that's really better. And, it's sort of had a long-term history, and there's just the science behind it is really important, because you're right. They're definitely not all created equally. And it is sad. I hate to hear these stories where, because it gives nutrition a bad name, they checked this supplement and there was none of there was almost nothing in it of what it was supposed to have. And you're just like, oh, that's awful. But yeah, there's definitely better companies out there, and it is a get what you pay for moment, so if it's really inexpensive, there's unfortunately a good reason for that, because credible companies are putting a lot into it, and it's there's no shortchanging that quality, I think.
In the long run, you're really saving money when you get the right product for you.
No, it's true. It is absolutely true. And there's also, a higher grade that I've been playing with. That's not on our site, but the liposomal, and that's something you might really do great with no stomach, because these are liposomal nanoparticles where you just swish it in your mouth for 30 seconds, and it just goes right in through the mucosa in the mouth, and you don't need a digestive tract at all. Of course you have one, but liposomal is amazing. And I don't know if can I talk about companies? Is that okay with you?
On the podcast, you absolutely can talk about companies.
I've got free reign. Okay. I have no affiliation with this company, but they are kind of brilliant, and they're called Quicksilver Scientific. And there's a broad range of, and they sell to doctors and to the public alike direct. And, you can listen to some of, podcasts and interviews from the founder, and he's quite a little smarty pants in how he's figured out this delivery system. It's pretty beautiful. So especially anybody who knows they have a compromised gut, it's huge. It's really huge. So check that out.
So what other nutrients do you think would be great to help boost the immune system?
Yeah, vitamin D is huge. So we're all, generally speaking, deficient in vitamin D. And so if you've had a recent physical, even if it was a year ago, pretty much vitamin D is measured these days across the board. So see what your level is. a nice level to get to when you really want to be defensible again against viruses and infections, generally speaking, is around 50 to 60. And typically people are in the 20s, sometimes lower. And so for every 10 units you want to raise your vitamin D, you need 2,000 international units. So the estimate is that, say you're at 50 or 60, then 2 to 3,000 could maintain that. But if you're at 20 and you wanted to get to 60, in other words, raise it by 4, right? That would be 8,000 international units to take. That's kind of the rule of thumb. So sometimes people say, well, I'm taking my D, but they're taking 2,000 international units and their level was 20. It's just going to keep them at 20, which is unsafe, unfortunately, because and then respiratory distress syndrome, which we've all heard about now with COVID-19, D and lung is inversely relate. There's an inverse relationship. So the stronger your D, the less lung problems you have. And there's been 25 peer-reviewed literature studies on this showing how protective D is for the lungs. Now we know it's anti-cancer. We know it's actually not so much a vitamin as a steroid hormone, but incredibly protective against lung infections and general infections. But what's fascinating about COVID-19 is that the way, so, this is your cell, viruses are not alive. They have to hijack a cell. They have to get into your cell and take it over, and then also take over its reproductive abilities. That's how they work, because they themselves are not alive. But the way they get in, you can almost imagine sort of a little lock on the outside of your cell, and the virus is the key, opening the lock. There's a receptor on your cell. It's called an ACE2 receptor, but it doesn't matter what it's called. But they gain entrance via that receptor. And that's, again, that science is very well understood at this point too. And that particular receptor, once it's really insidious, is once the virus, does that sort of lock and key, it takes the receptor and pulls it inside the cell. And so now you don't have as many receptors. The problem with that is that those particular receptors are what they do is anti-inflammation. Okay, they keep inflammation down, they keep blood pressure normalized, they keep fluid balanced in tow. So it's very important that you have those receptors. So what D does, vitamin D, is keeps the integrity of those receptors. And again, there's a huge influence of those receptors in lung tissue, which is why COVID is so deleterious to lung. You've got some in the heart as well, but very robust in the lung tissue. So having enough D is again defending you and keeping those receptors intact. It's pretty interesting.
Wow, that was great information, and you did a really good job explaining it, because even I got it.
Good. Okay, good. Yeah, as I said, I have a big YouTube channel. It's all for lay people, and I do a lot of public speaking here in Silicon Valley. So again, all for lay people. So I work at, and thank you, I work at trying to make it understandable when it's some crazy science.
Well, I definitely got it. I mean, it was
Good.
perfect. So
Good. Excellent.
What lifestyle habits can we utilize to help boost our immunity?
Yeah, so a couple of other supplements. Zinc is really important. It's another antiviral, so it's a mineral, so that's good. Vitamin A is good. And now lifestyle habits. Sleep is huge. Cannot overestimate the power of 8 hours. Sorry, people who like to get 5, 6. 8 hours. Yeah, we need 8 hours of sleep. And so there's been a tremendous amount of research on that. There's a great book, Why We Sleep, Dr. Matthew Walker, and he is from local to me. UC Berkeley has an incredible sleep lab there, but a lot of research on that. So remember, we mentioned the NK cells, the natural killer cells earlier, your immune defense army. He took young men, robustly healthy, very young men, and for a single night restricted their sleep to 4 hours for one night, their natural killer cells were thwarted by 70%.
That's
Took them down
significant.
70%. Yeah, in a single night. And then when they slept their, whatever they normally did the next night, it didn't bounce back either. It took quite a while to come back up. So what he says is 6 to 7 hours of sleep annihilates your immune system. That's the language he uses. So not exactly subtle, and doubles your risk for cancer. So it really has to do with the fact that at night when we're asleep, that is when our immune cells come out, and that's tied to melatonin, our sleep hormone. And it's when the body's at rest and not a lot of other things are happening. That's when the immune cells come out and they clean house, and they, just sort of fix everything up. It's like, oh, there's a cancer cell, kill it. There's a virus, kill it, and they're doing all of that at night, which is why when you are sick, what's the only thing you want to do? You just want to sleep, It's because your body is saying, you're a mess, go to sleep so we can get to work on you, right? So shortchanging sleep is really shortchanging life expectancy. It's really serious.
I'm 100% behind you on that. My oldest daughter is at D&M and has her PhD, and she's worked in sleep for 18 years, and she will
Oh,
tell you.
wow. So you know all
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
she knows right away when you're not getting enough sleep, what it can do to the effects on your body and how long it takes to bounce back from that.
It's incredible. I mean, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, obesity, everything you don't want to get, not getting enough sleep moves you in that direction. It's very impactful. And I'm here in the heart of Silicon Valley, and I regularly, speak to patients who think of sleep as a luxury. It's like, I don't have time to sleep. And it's like, well, let me give you some data and see if that changes your perspective a little bit.
Well, one of the things I really want to talk to you about before we finish up is this is a pretty stressful time with COVID. It's unusual for us. It's something we've never had to experience in our lifetime. And how can we stress or deal with stress right now? And how can we reduce that stress? Because it's crazy. And I know even though people are like, oh, I got this, I'm not sick, I'm super grateful that I'm not sick, but there's still stress. When is this going to end? How's this going to affect me?
Yeah. One thing, and I don't know, this is a little dietary, but I think it's just worth mentioning along with the sleep is no sugar, because sugar is the preferred source of fuel. And we can repeat that. It's the preferred source of fuel for viruses and bacteria and cancer cells. So we're really in a us versus them mentality, right? It's like, it's there, I don't want it, so then don't feed it. Don't feed it what it will thrive on. And and I bring that up because, when we're stressed, unfortunately, we want our comfort foods, we want the junk food, and it's really got to be a decision. Now, on our website, we have we have desserts, but they're all like, there's dates or a little coconut sugar. So I always tell patients, yeah, you want a dessert, totally fine. Here's some recipes, you get your little, happy moment of I had a dessert, but it's not sugar, because that's really, really deleterious. But from a lifestyle approach, I want to talk about the nervous system a little bit. So you have two parts of what's called your autonomic nervous system. So there's the sympathetic, and everybody's heard of fight or flight, right? We're pretty familiar with the fight or flight part of our nervous system. And so that's your sympathetic nervous system. And that's great for, like, you and I right now, we're kind of on, and, we're energized, and we've got adrenaline flowing, and it's fun to be on an adrenaline high, but you can't stay there. You have to shift back into what's called parasympathetic. And this is really key, because parasympathetic is rest, digest, and repair. So you have rest, meaning, of course, you can't fall asleep if your adrenaline is high, and we need our sleep, as we mentioned. Digest, of course, we need to eat good food and absorb that good food, but repair is the immune system. So when you're in fight or flight, you are thwarting, you're actually suppressing your immune system. So we listen to the news and we get all stressed out, and when we're in that mode, we're not allowing our immune system to thrive. So we need to shift back. So what I've been telling patients, okay, you want to get caught up, watch news in the morning or maybe midday, and then while you're in that fight or flight of I'm so stressed out and I have all this adrenaline flowing, go take a walk, get some exercise, put the adrenaline to good use, right? And then we have to shift back. Now you can shift back with a nice hot bath at the end of the day, a sauna if you happen to have it, things that are relaxing. You don't want to watch the news right before bed. And then lastly, I want to leave you all with a great breathing exercise, which really will shift you from sympathetic to the parasympathetic. So I'll just do it quickly so as not to bore anybody, but I'll just sort of talk you through it. So you can do it, and I'll talk you through it. So the first thing you do is you take a really deep breath in, okay? It's a real deep breath in, and you hold it until you can't possibly hold it anymore. So hold. And then of course, right? The air pushes out because you just couldn't hold it anymore, right? So then when it comes out, leave it out until all of a sudden, I gotta take it in because you need to breathe again. So it's a very dramatic in and out. But if you do this 5-10 times, you'll feel it will shift you into parasympathetic mode. It's really cool. And you're just like, okay, I feel more relaxed, and you can do that whenever throughout the day, if you're just feeling overly tense. So we talked about sleep, get plenty of water, take your nutrients, no sugar, lots of great fruits and vegetables. Definitely visit the site. I've laid out all of this as far as, the best vegetables and fruits to eat, things to avoid, like the sugar, refined carbohydrates. But this breathing exercise, if you just sort of like, I just can't seem to get out of this stress mode that I'm in, it's nice and it's easy. So I hope that helps.
That not only helps, but let me tell you something. When I go on stage and when you have that adrenaline and it's nervousness and all these things are going through your head. And the first thing I do when I go on stage is I jump up and down and shake everything off. But then I do those breathing, that exact breathing exercise. I do 5 of those, which puts me back into my focus, my calm. And when I walk out, nobody knows I was just on the side of the stage, jumping and shaking and breathing like a nut. But it really does. I come out there and there's this peace that has come over me and calmness, and I can be focused in the moment and not all that adrenaline that, of being anxious and nervous.
That can be excessive and anxiety provoking. No, it's true. And of course, here we do a lot with breathing. And the other one is, you tell somebody to take a deep breath and their shoulders come up, because they don't know how to belly breathe. And when you take a deep breath, you really shouldn't see the shoulders move. It should all be that nice deep from the diaphragm. And sometimes you have to teach people how to breathe. But I mean, it sounds so silly, but a lot of times people just aren't getting enough oxygen because they breathe so shallow just in their, sort of upper shoulders.
Well, Dr. Vikki, it's been a pleasure to be with you today, but I want you to tell everyone how they can connect with you. It's going to be in the show notes. Plus, I'm going to go find that article that you referred to on vitamin C, and I'm going to make sure that I put that in the show notes as well, so they can link to that.
There's a great one on vitamin D as well, and there's several on sleep. I'm a fan of my own.
I will grab them and I will put them in the show notes because I think it's such important information that you have access to it, and it's just super easy to grab in the show notes. But how can people find you?
Sure. So the website is rootcausemedicalclinics.com. So rootcausemedicalclinics.com. And then if somebody wants to set up a phone consultation, you can give us a call here at 408-733-0400. And one thing that I do that I'm very proud of is that we do free initial consultations. There's no charge, just to sort of get a really good history from somebody, see what's going on with them, and give them some direction, and enlighten them to how all of their many symptoms can kind of, what really could be a root cause associated with that. And that's sort of just a working diagnosis from a conversation. But, it can really take somebody who's just so overwhelmed by their health issues, and not getting a lot of help because it's specialists, and nobody's talking to one another. It kind of just pulls it all together, and it can be really helpful. So that's just a service we provide.
I'm really grateful that you provide that, because I talk to all my experts about dating their clients and building that
Yeah.
rapport and relationship before
Yeah.
putting your programs out there. So I think that's an
No,
amazing way to do it.
I know. I have so many people give me a hard time. Other clinicians go, "You're selling yourself short," and I'm just like, "No, people just. I mean, they've been through so much. They deserve to have a moment and have somebody really listen to them, and say, what could it be? I try to find out what they've done, and maybe what's been missed. So it's that being a great diagnostician, which I love to do that. I love to find the mystery, because our stable datum here is that when you unburden the body enough, it heals. So if it's not healing, I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but it's like you missed something. So what did you miss? That's that's our simplicity.
Well, I'm really grateful you were here today, and I was very
Oh,
excited
thank you.
about this show. So I've become kind of a fan of yours. So
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so much. It was really my pleasure.